I want to welcome you all here tonight, albeit virtually, as we remember the 6 men who were murdered 48 years ago on the New Lodge Road on the 3rd and 4th of February 1973. My name is Willie Loughlin, the brother of John Loughlin. Tonight we celebrate the memories of Jim Sloan, Jim McCann, Brendan McGuire, T.C. Campbell, John Loughlin and Ambrose Hardy. These men were our loved ones. They were murdered by the British state. They are missed every day. The injustice that night, 48 years ago, continues to this day. The denial of truth by the British government to our families. When it comes to the people who have been bereaved by the British state and its agents, the search for truth has been obstructed, has been deliberately complicated at every turn, whether that be at McCurk's Bar, Bloody Sunday, Loughlin Island or the Armour Road, bookmaker killings. Like so many other families, we too have refused to be dismissed. We have refused to be silenced in our fight for truth and justice. That we remember here again tonight, 40 years on, is evidence that will not be silenced. Our struggle for truth and justice in the memory of our loved ones goes on. It is also important tonight that we also remember all those from the New Lodge community who lost their loved ones during the conflict. I also want to thank the local Sinn Féin representatives, Karen Cullen, Jerry Kelly, JJ, all who have been steadfast in their support for our families over many years. I also want to thank Relatives for Justice, who have stood and supported the families and have walked with us in our campaign. Finally, I just want to finish by thanking the New Lodge Memorial Committee, who have hosted this remembrance event for decades, and whose work to preserve and protect the memory of all those whose lives were lost during the conflict all year round. We are deeply indebted to you all. Thanking you.
It's timely because we're expecting a decision from the Attorney General the week beginning 8th of February as to whether there's going to be a new inquest ordered in this case. The background is that RFJ submitted what's called a Section 14 application to the then Attorney General, John Larkin, in early 2017. He looked at the submission that we made asking for a new inquest, and he decided that instead of asking for a new inquest, he was going to give the paper to the Director of Public Prosecutions and ask him if he considered that there were criminal offences which needed to be investigated. And he could then order this by way of what's called a Section 35(5) notice to the Chief Constable, asking the Chief Constable to carry out a criminal investigation. So I think the important part about that is that the Attorney General clearly looked at what we were suggesting and saw that there were criminal offences being committed by soldiers or potential criminal offences. And he felt that rather than an inquest, there needed to be a criminal prosecution. So in a sense, he was upgrading it to a certain extent. That sat with the DPP for some time. And then eventually what the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecution, decided, came back to us with was that as these cases are already on the caseload of the Legacy Investigation Branch of the PSNI, he didn't propose that there should be any leapfrogging of this case by over any others, and he would just leave it on the caseload of the Legacy Investigation Branch as and when they would investigate it. Now, there are two problems with that. One is because of how long ago it is. It seems as though it should be right up there. This is a case of 6 deaths allegedly caused by the British Army. And we feel that that's pretty serious and needs to happen. The other thing is that it just took so long and it was so circular. You know, you apply to one institution, that institution hands it over to another institution, who then says, well, there's another institution that's going to look at it, and they don't have to take any or make any decisions. In the meantime, then we weren't satisfied with this, and neither were the families. And in the meantime, we had received some more information from the National Archives in London, found by paper trail, and we made a further submission to the Attorney General. This was just as John Larkin was finishing his term, and the new Attorney General, Brenda King, I think her name is, was just about to start in post. So she received the new submission that we had made and decided that she wanted to review all the papers once more, and see whether, along with the first submission and then the second submission, there's a case to be made that she should order a new inquest. So she'd been doing that for the last number of months, and that's the decision that we expect to get the week beginning the 8th of February. The annoying thing about it all is that it just all takes so long, and so upsetting for families to have to be waiting. But we are in a process at the very least, and we'll see what Ms. Brenda King decides on the 8th of February. So that's the up-to-date. Oh, the other thing I should say is that various family members have engaged various lawyers, and they are doing two things. One is that they're challenging the decisions of the DPP and the previous Attorney General not to order an inquest or not to order an expedited criminal investigation. So there are judicial reviews underway, and they'll obviously be influenced by the new decision. And then finally, there's still an outstanding complaint in with the police ombudsman that will, at some stage, again, the ombudsman doesn't have enough resources to do anything about this in the meantime, but that's on their books and stands ready to be investigated by them at some stage. The final thing, perhaps I should say, is that as far as we're concerned, the Legacy Investigation Branch doesn't have the required independence to investigate these cases. These fall into the Article 2 requirements from the European Convention, and therefore it should be a properly independent body that investigates this. And from our perspective, the Legacy Investigation Branch doesn't meet that standard. And indeed, the courts support us in that they're not sufficiently independent to carry out these type of legacy investigations. So that's where we are at currently.
Buhis leveleg as an Curry Horch do, Lorchan Shaw agus more and privilege agus honour do. Jim McCann, Jim Sloan, Tony T.C. Campbell, Brenton Fat Maguire, John Loughran and Ambrose Hardy. The 6 men we are here to remember tonight came from this area, all sons of the New Lodge. In February 1973, the British Army, firing from the top of the flats and firing from the Antrim Road, killed those 6 innocent men yards from where we are standing here tonight. I, like so many people living in this area, either weren't born or weren't old enough to remember the events of 1971, when over a 3-day period the British Army's Parachute Regiment shot 11 innocent civilians dead in Ballymurphy. Or indeed remember the events in Derry in January 1972, when the same British Army regiment murdered 14 people on Bloody Sunday. Again in July that same year, another 5 people in Springhill were murdered by the British Army Parachute Regiment. So let me take a moment to pay tribute to the families that have campaigned for truth and justice for their loved ones. It is an inspiration to me that the generations who have followed in their footsteps will continue to work tirelessly on this campaign, and indeed with other campaigns, with determination of those that have gone before us. Some of our neighbours and friends have sadly passed without ever seeing that truth and that justice they campaigned so long and hard for. The British Prime Minister and the British Secretary of State are trying to put the British soldiers who killed Irish citizens above the law. They want British soldiers to have impunity from prosecution on top of the de facto impunity they have enjoyed for almost 50 years. Sinn Féin is committed to the full implementation of the Stormont House Agreement of 2014. It was a compromise agreement by the two governments and again agreed by all the main parties, and the British government has all but thrown the Stormont House Agreement in the bin. This despite them promising in the new decade, new approach document of the 9th of January last year that they would publish and indeed introduce legislation to implement the Stormont House Agreement within 100 days. So the British government cannot continue to act in a partisan fashion by covering up state killings. They were neither independent nor neutral. Sinn Féin will resist any attempt to legitimise state impunity for British Army soldiers. In stark contrast, we have the memory of the bravery of Jim Sloan, Jim McCann, Brent Maguire, Tony Campbell, John Loughran and Ambrose Hardy. These unarmed men courageously rushed to each other's aid, and on the New Lodge Road they tried in vain to save each other, and under a hail of British Army gunfire they died together. The well-trained British Army soldiers, under direct orders and using night sights for the first time, murdered unarmed and indefensible men and walked away with absolute impunity. The families of the New Lodge 6, and indeed the families of so many others from this community and across this island, deserve nothing and nothing less than the truth and indeed justice. These families are courageous. They, despite their heartbreak, despite everything that's been put up in front of them, have refused to give up. And as with the families of those who killed in the McGurk's bombing, or of Peter McBride, of Pat Finucane, and so many others from this community, they have, with dignity, fought to ensure that nationally and internationally, state murder and indeed state collusion and cover-up will be exposed. We will continue to stand in solidarity and in respect from every decade past. From each generation, we will remember them, and we will continue to keep the memory of your loved ones alive.
Regrettably, if the report published recently in the North Belfast News is accurate, then it appears little has changed. According to a press release issued by the New Lodge 6 Committee on the 29th of October 2002, an Army press officer, when approached by the newspaper for a statement concerning today's citizens' inquiry, stated, and I quote, "There's no fucking way we work to your rules. You know the score, fuck off."